Welcome back to Heightscast, the podcast of the Heights School. This is Rich Moss with you from the campus of the Heights in Potomac, Maryland. We're here to talk about the education and the formation of young men fully alive in the liberal arts tradition. I'm delighted to welcome back to the studio this week our headmaster, Mr. Alvaro de Vicente. Welcome, Alvaro.
Thank you, Rich.
And so we're here in this summer setting, a chance to kind of, kick back a little bit and think again about these big picture themes before we launch back into the trenches of the academic year. I think it's an interesting time not only for teachers, but also for parents as well. So that's one thought, a time for parents to kind of go big in their thinking. It's also a time for parents to spend a lot of time with their kids.
Right.
Our kiddos are around a whole lot more. And so one of the things that we reflect on here is just, it goes without saying, but the idea that we have to not only love our students, we have to ideally also try to like them. And so this is an interesting time for parents because you're around your kids a lot more in the summer. But there's a lot there that we naturally like. There's a lot there that sometimes we don't naturally like. And so we'll talk about that today. Just it's can seem like kind of a no-brainer. Okay, as a parent, you got to really like your child. But I think there is actually stuff here to ponder, and so you'll guide us through that process. Why can it be difficult to like our children sometimes, Alvaro?
Right. I think there's probably a billion ways in which you could not like your child, right?
Yeah.
And any given day, there may be some new ones. There are not many relationships in our lives where we say, I have to like this person continually and consistently. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you think most of the relationships, even friendships, you can just get away from somebody for a couple of days, right? You can say, well, geez, we had a little bit of a conversation, with that friend. We're just going to chill for a week. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that with your child, right? You can't say, well, I don't like my kid right now, so I'm just not going to talk to him for a week, right? I'm going to ghost him for a week. You can't do that. So maybe the first step when looking at this is, okay, just very simply, what is the difference between loving your child or loving your student and liking your child or liking your student? And let's think of love as a commitment to the good of another for a long period of time, if not permanently. Right? So loving somebody is being committed to the good of that person. And that commitment is going to have several manifestations, obviously, and some of them circumstantial. But the commitment is deep, right? It's not changeable. Like I don't change my mind every day because otherwise it's not a commitment, or every month or every year. It's lasting, right? I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking forever, right? And it's because of that it's stable. Mm-hmm. Right? It's sort of a stable relationship. So if that's love, to like somebody as opposed to loving somebody is an attraction to what someone provides for me. Let me just put it that way, right? So to like somebody is to be attracted to what this person provides for me. And whether that is a physical presence, emotional presence, intellectual presence, whatever it might be, I say, well, I like this person. You can say, I like spending time with this person, or I like talking with this person. I'm attracted to what this person provides for me. That's much more emotional. It also depends on the other person's behavior, right? As opposed to love that depends on my commitment to the good of the person, regardless of what the person does. Liking the person is more dependent on what does the person do. What is his behavior or her behavior like, and therefore is more changeable, right? It may be that the person does something that we don't like, and we go from don't liking that to really don't liking the person right now. And the good part of that is that because it is changeable, I may like the person again in an hour or in a day or in a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's emotional, right? It has the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it is true that if you love somebody, you're much more likely to like that person, right? I mean, the commitment to the good of the person is going to create in us, I think, an emotional attachment to the person, to the point where we're well disposed to liking the person just because we've invested so much in the good of that person. At the same time, if I like somebody, I may or may not be able to love that person. There is a bad way in which we can like people, and it's kind of a selfish way. That is, I like what this person does for me, period. So that could be the case of, an emotional codependent relationship where I just, I like this person because they make me feel good. But the value of the person is totally attached to how they make me feel, right? If the stuff making me feel good, then I no longer value the person. I don't like the person. Or, that's the case in a premarital sexual relationship, right? Where a boy would say, well, I really love my girlfriend, and I wouldn't be having sex with her otherwise. Like, well, not really.
Yeah.
You like that emotional kickback, that emotional pleasure. But if that stops, it may be that you find that there's no love there, right? So, liking doesn't automatically lead to love. But I think when you like somebody, if you like that person well and more selflessly, I think it will lead to love. So, what are some ways in which we can try to like our students or our children well? And it's an interesting question because it almost seems like the impossible task, right? Like, basically, you're coming down to saying, okay, how can I generate my emotions in a positive way so that I am attached to this person in a healthy way? That seems like a doubly impossible task, right? Mission Impossible 2.0, right? How is this going to happen? And I think there are different ways, and some of it is temperamental. But I'm going to propose like 4 action items or 4 things that any of us could do that I think are more likely to help us to like somebody. And the first one would be gratitude. To recognize for myself how grateful I am to have this person in my life. And that recognition, I think, can be quote unquote programmed. I could decide, every morning when I brush my teeth, I'm going to look at the mirror and I'm going to say, thank you, Lord, for putting this child of mine in my life. Thank you, Lord, for this other child of mine. Like, I can actually program my expressing that gratitude, even if it's to myself. And frankly, that's all we need. Right? So the gratitude, it kind of a reminder, a daily reminder that I am blessed to have this person in my life. Right? Also, in the case of a parent with his child or a teacher with his students, a gratitude not only that this person is in my life, this child, but that I am in a place in which I have the opportunity to shape this person. Thank you for putting me in that place, right? In the case of a parent, thank you, Lord, for entrusting me with this child, right? That I have the opportunity to shape this child's character, heart, mind. Same thing as a teacher to some extent. And also, thank you for giving me the opportunity to enjoy this child. So I think that triple gratitude, right? Gratitude for gratefulness for having the person in my life, gratefulness for having the opportunity to shape this person, gratefulness for having the opportunity to enjoy this person. So I think that's one of the ways, right? Gratitude. And it's a way to mold our mind in a positive way towards the relationship, where I'm not seeing the child as a problem or as a nuisance, or as a black hole of needs that is never satisfied, right? But I'm beginning to see the child gratefully, right? Thank you for being there. Thank you because I can shape the child, which means there are going to be tough moments, but thank you for putting me in his life, in her life, so I can shape her life. And thank you for the opportunity to spend time with the child and enjoy him. The second one, after gratitude, would be time. Just very, very simple, just time, like spending time with the child. And I would say, when thinking about time, thinking about two types of time units, if you want. One is regular times at home, dinner or breakfast or before bed, like whatever works for the house. But that time that I would say is predictable, foreseeable, expected, look forward to. Like we just spend that time, no matter what happens, we try to have dinner together, or breakfast on weekends, or we try to spend time before going to bed, half hour in the living room, where we just lounging and talking, chit-chat, and that kind of thing. Like time, predictable time. And I think that's important because from the child's point of view, this is a parent making himself or herself accessible and available. Is like office hours. When you go to college, the professor who said, yeah, you can come and ask me questions whenever you want, sounds very accessible, but then you can never find him, right? You go, it sounded good, but I haven't been able to ask any questions because it's never around. As opposed to the professor who said, listen, whenever you want to, come and ask me questions. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 1 to 2:30, I'm in my office. That predictability means that he actually wants to be available. Like he's committed, right? He's not just expressing a wish. He's actually committed. He's investing the time into it. So I think that the regular time helps, right? Is a parent saying, I am accessible. I'm here. Like, and sometimes is, time together. Also, sometimes it's like, the kids knowing that every evening I'm going to be reading from 9 to 9:45. That if they want something, they know they can find me there. And they can come by, and that as soon as they come in, I close the book. I don't do one of those where I keep the book open and I say, yes, what are you going to tell me? Because that indicates this better be quick because I haven't closed the book, right? So I got to close the book, put it aside. That's done. Like, what do you want? What do you need? How are you? So regular time is one. And then the other way that I think it helps to spend time is unnecessary time. That is time that we don't have to spend together, the parent and child don't have to spend together. But the fact that we're together means that you want to, right? So, for instance, driving the kid to school, that's likely necessary. Unless the kid knows that you don't have to do it, right? That somebody else could, but that you chose to. But in most cases, from the kid's point of view, it's like, well, yeah, he has to take me to school. Even driving the kid to practice, to recitals, I would say those times, from a kid point of view, I don't think they see them as unnecessary. Because the way that a kid sees it is, well, my parents chose this, so they want me to do this, so they're going to take me there, right? They may even complain, like, well, you're not going to take me there? Like, it's your fault, right? Because you chose this as much as I did. So I don't think they see that as an unnecessary time. Unnecessary time means, hey, let's go for a drive. Where are we going? I don't know. Anywhere you want to go? I was thinking we're just going for a drive for a little bit. Let's go get some ice cream. But it's January. I know. Isn't that great? How about asking him in January? Like unnecessary time. That it doesn't, from the kid's point of view, he'll think, wow, dad didn't have to do this. He kind of chose, right? Or mom didn't have to do this, kind of chose to do it. All right, so gratitude, time. The third one, I would say, is humor. Humor is, I think, very helpful because humor helps us see and understand that what we think is a big deal may not be a big deal. And by humor, I would say humor defined as finding amusement in situations, right? Humor is a great ability as a parent and as an educator to find amusement in what the kid said, find amusement in what the kid did, right? Find amusement in those situations, right? I think that really matters because humor is the tool available to me to keep my mind frame positive towards the child, right? Is my release valve so that pressure doesn't mount in my brain and I get all worked up. It's a way to de-escalate my own brain, right? And to know that, hey, maybe it's not such a big deal, right? There's some things we're going to have to face and some things that'll be bigger deals than other, but I think we tend to make a bigger deal out of things than we ought and escalate situations. Humor. And frankly, it can also be, without being sarcastic, right, per se, but it can also be a way to deal with the request, the bantering of a kid who wants something real bad. Maybe humor without making, a big deal out of it. So humor would be the third one. And then the fourth one is it's just prayer. It's grace, just asking for grace, right? Because to like somebody, as we said at the beginning, is something that is mission impossible. It's going to be in our control, right? How do we generate the right emotions all the time, every time? Like, well, that's going to be really, really hard. Let God help. We just got to let God help because, frankly, we can't do it otherwise. So maybe in the morning, as we are brushing our teeth and being thankful for our children, for the opportunity to shape them, for the opportunity to enjoy them, is when we can also ask, Lord, give me the grace to like my children, right? Give me the grace to shape them today, to enjoy them today. And then we can. And then obviously we can. So those are the four tools, if you want, I think that we all have available, right? Gratitude, time, humor, and grace, prayer.
Why do you? So awesome. What is it about? How does? I mean, if we love our children, I think they have that sense. Why is it important for them to believe themselves to be liked?
Great. I think that really I think it really matters because we are going to shape them through liking them more than through giving any advice whatsoever. We tend to think that if I tell my child or this student the right things all the time, they'll be perfectly formed. And I just don't think that there is much evidence of that, right? That actually works that way.
To the contrary.
Yeah, but we're sort of convinced that, man, I've told this kid so many times, I can't believe they don't do it. Like, well, that's because you assume that talk is effective.
Right.
And I don't know, that's where we went wrong, the first premise, right? The way that we're going to shape the kids, the boys, is going to be by liking them the right way. Because think about a child as a young person who desperately wants to be liked. Mm-hmm. Because to be liked is to be affirmed. To be affirmed means to say, you are good the way that you are. God liked Adam when he created him? You are good, right? Is God telling Adam, I like you, kid, right? I like you. And you can just see Adam filled with confidence, like, wow, my dad likes me, right? He put me together, but he likes me. It's not like he put me together and goes, I don't know. Next time will be better, right? Like he likes me. So I think that's with the kids, right? With children, with the students, the same thing is you're saying, I like you, like you're good. Once they know that you like them, they will do whatever they can to continue being liked. They want that. And that's where a lot of the shaping comes through. It's not by telling them, but it's by showing them. The challenge for us is, okay, what happens when they behave poorly? And that's where I think this idea of gratitude, time, humor is really important, and prayer is really important, because it is in those times when they do something that we really, really dislike, where they show their worst, that we have to try to show them that I didn't like what you did, but I still like you. Right? I still enjoy your presence. I still think that you're a lot of fun. That statement was silly, but that's all right. We all misfire once in a while. It's that distinction. So why it's important that we like him? I think because that way we're going to be able to shape him, and also not only that we're going to like him, shape him through liking them, but it's this time we're going to spend with them. They're going to be much more open to our shaping them, much more open, right? Because once they feel liked, they want to know, right? They want to listen to you. They want to know what you think. They want to know why you like him, all those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really helpful. Just the fundamental human need, desire to be known and to be affirmed, and then this liking as a way for our children to know that there's like not just like an intellectual abstract affirmation of their goodness, but like deep down viscerally, like my natural self is glad that you are.
Right, exactly.
That's
exactly
big. At a parent coffee last year, you host these coffees for our parents, first Thursday every month. They're awesome. Heights parents definitely should go. But at one of them, you talked about the importance. I think you were encouraging us to, maybe the overall framework was a discussion of some of the anxiety that kids face. And I think you saw the root of that, some of it in kind of this living either in the past or in the future, kind of a screw tape-esque approach to it. And you encouraged us to be rooted in the present, in part through enjoyment of our children. Just enjoy them. How does that, is that kind of a similar thing? Is it the same thing, enjoying our children? How does that relate to liking them?
Yes, no, that's great. I think, that point that, frankly, we're all so busy of our own making for the most part, right? Yeah. That we are continually living, a lot of it is in the future because, the things that we have to do, right? So it's second semester, junior year in high school, summer after junior year. If you ask a student how things are going, most likely they're going to be talking about the stress of college applications. Like, well, sure. I mean, you do have to plan for those, and you have to work for those, right? And you have to go through that process really well. But what a shame, because that's taken away the enjoyment of your second semester junior year and even the summer, right? Or, playing for a team and being stressed that I want to make the other team, right? So that's what I was looking at and saying, well, what a shame when children are living that way and parents are living that way. And all of a sudden, we're not living in the present because it's always like what's coming down, and how do we prepare for it?
Which is totally like in the summer. It's like, hey, are you the schoolwork? Are you doing your math? Are you doing your Latin? Are you working out? Like all the things
Exactly
for a future time.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like
summer.
don't waste the summer. Don't waste summer. Do more. And frankly, I and we do this here, right? I mean, you talk to students. Okay, let's have a plan. Let's have goals. Let's make it productive, because otherwise it can disintegrate into doing nothing. I mean, there's that danger, right?
Totally.
But I think there's a difference between, hey, let's have a plan, and if you don't do this, you're not going to make the team. If you don't do this, because I think that's the message very often, right, that we give the students is, unless you work really hard in these areas, your future life is just not going to be that good. That's the message. And I think that's a very negative message.
Totally.
And frankly, it's not true.
Yeah.
Right? There are many ways in which that person's life could be fantastic without accomplishing those things, right? So it's not true, and it's negative, and is stressful, and leads to that kind of anxiety. And frankly, it leads to a lot of anxiety on the part of the parents, because once the parents are convinced that unless my child does all these things really well, he's not going to have a good future. I love my child. I want him to have a good future. There's also, for parents, there's also some selfish motives, like, oh, I don't want to be the guy in town that everyone is talking about because his children kind of screwed up. Oh, they didn't go to that university. Well, or they didn't, they were not on the list of top players or whatever it might be, right? So there's all these anxieties. Some are because of the kids, some is because of us, whatever it might be. That's just one anxious person telling another person that unless they do something, they're going to be miserable. So there's one anxious person making another person anxious.
Yeah.
And the reaction of that anxious young person is going to make the older anxious person even more anxious. Like,
right.
Now you're in this.
Yeah.
You're in this vicious cycle, right?
Yes.
So, as opposed to that, having these built-in times, the thing, especially during the summer, like, let's just go to the beach for a week.
Yeah.
Right? Bring a book, read, sure, but let's just go to the beach and just hang out.
Yeah.
Or, let's do this in the evenings. Let's just go out to the patio and sit there and talk, or, play the guitar or whatever it is. Or let's go, we're going to watch movies this summer. We're going to pick top 30 movies, and we're going to watch them and talk about them. Like, whatever it is, like, almost it doesn't matter, right? Whatever a family wants to do. But it's just creating that time and the space in which you can enjoy each other's company without being anxious about what's next, right? And what we have to do.
Yeah, it's like it's almost sounds like just making sure that your family has time to play. I think back to John Dumovich's most excellent speech at graduation a few years ago.
Exactly.
And just making sure that you're doing things for their own sake as a family, not like instrumentalizing everything,
right?
But making sure that you find the time to do things for their own sake. Maybe, I don't know, it's interesting that as a parent, you have this natural, there's this natural love of your child, like an instinctual, we talk about liking as more of an emotional reaction to the child. And it seems like that partly it's kind of hard coded into you as a parent. Switching gears a little bit to being a teacher, it is this interesting dynamic where, for many of us as teachers, the difference between the boy in our classroom and the boy on the street is an enrollment contract.
Right.
But where does that? How do you find the love, or like where does the love of that student come from as a teacher, especially as a teacher of boys who are, they're all great, but sometimes they're They're challenging, Coach.
Sometimes they hide it.
Yeah, that's right.
They say, you're really good, but boy, you're hiding it really well too.
It's
right?
down deep.
You're a magician.
Yeah,
now
totally.
you see it, now you don't.
Totally. And it develops over time. We're raising
Right.
future 40-year-olds, but
Right.
Yeah, as a teacher, how do you find that? Where does that come from?
Yeah, frankly, I think a lot of the tools are the same, right? I mean, as a teacher, you don't have obviously the natural hormonal disposition to love this child as you would in the case of your own child.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right that you could say, well, I mean, the difference between the kid on the street that you never know and the kid in your classroom is an enrollment contract, and that is true. But once that kid is in your classroom, then there's a relationship. Like, he is in my classroom. And I think a lot of it depends on how we teachers view our world, right? If I view the students as clients that come through my classroom, whom I have to serve, then I may be more or less happy with the clientele, right? It may be that I say, man, it's like the owner of a restaurant. Like, yeah, I want to have clients in my restaurant because, it's good for business.
Mm-hmm.
But I like some clients better than others. They're just, nicer to have around. They tip much better. I may have some clients in the restaurant that I wish didn't come as often because they're just kind of rowdy and obnoxious and they always complain and they send things back to the kitchen and they don't tip well, right? So if that's the view that we can have of teaching, I just have clients, and there's some clients, some students that I really like, and others that, man, they're just kind of rowdy and don't give much feedback, and what they give is negative and not that enjoyable, right? But I think that's the wrong way to look at teaching. I think the way to look at teaching is that actually they're not my clients. If anyone, my client is God. And these are kids that God is putting in my path to shape. But I am doing God's business, right? It's my commitment not to the students. It's my commitment to God that I am here as an instrument for you to shape these boys into the man you want them to be. And from that point of view, if the kid is misbehaving, it's not a problem. It's an opportunity. Now, there is going to be an emotional reaction on our part, right? Because we're human. There's going to be the times when we say, like, man, I want to strangle this kid, or, what's wrong with this kid, or why don't I, that could happen. But I think we just got to put that aside as, well, that's just like the primeval reaction, right? But then the human, reaction can overcome it. We're like, all right, let me, make sure that I refocus. Like, okay, he's the kid that God has put in my path to shape at this time, right? What's the move? What's the way to shape him? So I, with that framework, I think the particular tools are the same that I mentioned before. I think the gratitude. I think, as a teacher, maybe not being able to go student by student, because if we teach 60, 70, or 100 kids, I'm just not going to be able to remember each one of them every morning, right? It's going to be too taxing. But I can go by class, grateful for everyone in this class, grateful for everyone in this other class, right? Time. Not dinner with them, not hanging out on weekends, right? We're going to be limited. But time, which means, that I'm available, that I don't mind lingering after class. I don't mind getting there time before class so they can ask questions, that they know where I'm going to be, that whenever they come, I feel, they feel that I actually want them to come and talk. I enjoy their company. Humor will also help us. Being amused at situations, right? Amused at, the kid who was sleeping in class. And I'm like, well, there I thought I was giving the greatest lecture ever, and what do I get but snores back, right? That's right.
Sir, is this going to be on the test?
Yeah. Or is it going to be on the test? Or,
Come on, man.
So excited. Somebody's, like, he's going to ask a question. Yes, what do you want? Can I go to the bathroom? No, you
No.
can't go to the
That's right.
right.
No chance.
But finding humor in those things,
Yes.
right? It's amusing.
Yeah.
And frankly, those are the things that we know. If we talk about them, we think about them a year later, we realize they're amusing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that was kind of funny that happened. Let me try to find the humor at the time, not just afterwards. And then obviously the prayer, right? Asking for the grace. So I think the practical tools are the same.
That's super interesting. And then I think the humor piece is really important as a way to de-escalate things with our own kids. Or students, an amazing tool. Also a way to just cope with some of the situations. And to be clear, I mean, our kids sometimes throw some pretty interesting curveballs at us. I mean,
For sure.
not rooted in my own experience, of course, necessarily or not, but like, okay, your child is caught drinking in some basement, or cheats on a test,
Right.
or I mean, how many crazy things
Right.
have you seen kids do, Mr.
Right.
Vicente? So are you saying even in those moments, humor, and how? Because you're just like, your brain shuts off, and
Yes.
the lizard brain just wants to like attack.
Yeah,
how you do it.
even in those moments, I mean, I remember, parents after wonderful parents after a parent-teacher conference where his kid was getting, I think a D was the highest grade, probably. I mean, it was D's and F's. You could do one of these parent-teacher conferences. You may have 5 or 6 meetings in a row. And as parents being told by the first teacher, yeah, he's not doing his work, he's not doing anything in class, he's not interested, I don't know how bright he is, he doesn't seem to care. And then the second teacher, the same thing, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, right?
It's a heck of a Friday.
I mean, yeah, there's like 2.5 or 3 hours on a Friday afternoon of being told, yeah, your kid is academically hopeless, and what that may mean for you, right? And they're driving home, and one turned to the other and saying, well, at least we know that he's honest. Right?
That's awesome.
At least we know he's not cheating.
There you go.
That's something good going for him.
There you
right?
go.
He's taking those D's and F's like a champ, right? He's not tempted to go around the corner. And by the way, that kid is doing phenomenally now, right? And did very well post graduation, and he's a great husband. He's a great dad. He's a great worker. I mean, fantastic, right? So I think the point is that very often the big things that we see are not that big, right? There are some that may be bigger, right? I mean, drinking in the basement, or is he becoming an alcoholic? Or just going through this silly high school thing, right?
Yeah.
Drugs. Okay, got to break that habit. And we have to act.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've seen people in jail. They landed in jail because of something they did. And, find humor in that. Tough, right? When you're talking to the kid across the thick glass, with the phone in your ear, right? Tough. But I've seen them come out of that and do very well, right? They got in a bad place. But in that case, the humor is not so much, oh boy, that's funny, right? You're in jail, but no, that's not the humor. But the humor is, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. What you were doing was dumb. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're much better than this. Use this opportunity to build yourself up. Like, this is a beginning.
Yep.
Right? It's not the end, it's the beginning. Like, the humor is not always a knee slapper. The humor is being able to see the particular situation in a lighter mode. Right? That this is not, it doesn't have to be a heavy bag that brings you down. Right? You got to put some helium in there. It's gonna, it could be a balloon that raises you up, right? So it's not, because some things are tough. So they're not humorous, funny joke, knee slappers. It's just, funny situation in life.
Yeah.
right? Human beings are so complex. Human lives are so complex. There's so many things that can happen to any one of us. So many different circumstances. You're just finding the amusement in those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting because it seems like humor is, I mean, what is it? Something is funny when there's like an incongruity. Things are incongruous. Like the way things are is not the way things are presented is not actually how they are. And so, and it's like that dichotomy that just makes you laugh.
Exactly.
And so I think being able to find humor in a situation is like, it's this inherently what you're telling your child is what we see in this moment is not actually true, and that's funny.
It's like the baby in the crib with a deep voice giving financial advice, right? Totally. And you look at it and go, "Why?"
I'm laughing. Yes.
Yeah. Why is that funny? Yeah, because it's incongruous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a baby shouldn't have that voice and doesn't know anything about finances.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the humor is. Like you, who are a good man, good young man, having done this thing, don't go together.
Yeah.
I find that humorous.
Right.
I find that humorous. We just got to move over to another commercial. Like this is not a good one. Right?
Yeah, totally. And then talk to us, because I think the temptation in those moments, and maybe it's a result of not having humor. Maybe it is the reason we can't have humor. Chicken or the egg, I don't know, both. But the temptation is, you see your child, behind the hypothetical glass in the jailhouse, and you're talking over the phone, and the evil one's just at your ear being like, hey, you're the worst parent ever. You failed.
Right.
So
exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a big reason that we lose humor, is because we take it too personally.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As opposed to watching the commercial of the baby with a deep voice that is totally impersonal. We take it too personally because we see the perceived success of our child as our success. And the perceived failure of the child as our failure. That you're doing poorly academically, and that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
Or you didn't make the team, and that's on me. Maybe I didn't get you the lessons, didn't get you the practice, didn't get you the equipment, whatever it might be. You're in jail, and that's on me. And I remember talking to one of the dads here, and he was saying, I don't understand why people blame schools if the kids do something wrong. If my kid does something wrong, that's on him. He's a free human being, right? It's totally on him. Secondarily, it's going to be on the school or on me as a parent, most likely on me as a parent, depending on what it is. But always secondarily. The kid is free.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that we have to remind ourselves of, that we're dealing with free human beings, right? We can't determine what they're going to do, the choices they're going to make. And even if we mean well and we try to make all the right choices for them, we never will, because we're human, right? As a parent, you're never going to say the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
Or do the right thing all the time, or be available not only physically but emotionally all the time. As a teacher, the same thing. Like, we are going to be imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that those imperfections will determine the kid's bad behavior. There's some extreme case you could say, yeah, that's true, right? I mean, parents were fighting all the time, or parents got split in each other's throats, and, the kids were, left behind. Like, I mean, there may be some cases you go, yeah, this is, this parental behavior was a problem. Like that. But I think in most cases it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? In most cases, I think we just can't take it that personally. And not lament what we didn't do, but look for the opportunity of what we may do now. Right? I think that's the step to take.
Yep. Again, just being rooted in the present, kind of going back to that C.S. Lewis. And so then, man, keep going forever here. But last question, just in the interest of time. So then, what does this mean? I've been reading some Colin Gleason, after the conference we did this year on passing the faith on to our kids, recommended that the I Believe in Love book about Saint Therese of Lisieux. Beautiful book, but in there they have a chapter on, or the priest Dembele, I believe. Or no, that's a soccer player.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't remember.
I don't know if he's writing any books. Maybe so.
I don't think so. Anyway, whoever wrote the book about Saint Therese has a great chapter on detachment, and it just has me thinking a little bit about is there a sense in which we need to have a certain level of detachment from our kids? Like, I wonder if that's what you're describing, in the sense that, like, you also mentioned codependency earlier on, where there's too much attachment. So maybe just to end there, like, is there a space that we ought to have between our own conception of our own selves as sons of God and then our children's? How do you do that without being too detached?
Yes. No, it is such an important topic, right? Because you don't want to be cold.
Yeah.
Right? Detached to the point of being unmoved and untouched by the kid's behavior and the kid's life. At the same time, you don't want to have your emotional stability attached to the kid's behavior, because they don't need a security blanket. They need a parent. Right? They need a parent who can have the greater emotional stability to be able to not go for a ride with the kid when the kid is going up and down emotionally. I'm able to say, slow down, right? Or, don't worry about that, or do worry about this other thing, right? So how to do that? Well, I don't know how you do it unless you have other relationships in your life that are deeper and firmer than the relationships that you have with your children, right? Because in order to have a good relationship with somebody who is younger, you have to have very healthy relationships with people your age, and especially with God.
Yeah.
Those are going to secure you in such a way that then you have the emotional bandwidth to be able to match the kid without being driven by the kid's emotional instability.
Yeah.
So in the case of a parent with your spouse, first and foremost, right, that relationship has to be strong. Also friendships.
Yeah.
Right? For a dad, other men in your life with whom you can go and grab a drink and talk and find some humor.
Yeah.
Right? And even that conversation from dad to dad can put so many things in perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you can't believe what my kid did the other day. Right?
Yeah.
Here's what he said, here's what he did. And just to find, like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. I've been through that, or I haven't, but, now I know what to look forward to. Like,
yeah.
And then with God, right? So that you get your security, your confidence from that relationship, right? Through your own prayer. So that way we have the emotional stability that we need to be able to support the kid without being rocked by the kid's instability.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, and I wonder if in some way that actually makes it possible to enjoy them more, because it seems like if we kind of like internalize our children and make them part of our own sense of self, then as you're beholding this child, in a way, like, you're not beholding an other, you're not beholding a gift, you're just beholding something that you're sort of like, it's like just it's a part of you, and that's just not healthy. So I think having, obviously we can be detached in some respect from these children for whom we would give our life in a second, but then that detachment in turn allows a space within which you can see the child as gift, like undeserved, unwarranted,
and
gift,
blessed and
blessed,
beautiful and awesome,
even when they do the things they do.
Even when they hide it.
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 And they hide it well.
Oh man, I love it. Awesome. I gotta ask, Mr. Vicente, any good reads recently? If you read, what are you reading this summer? Anything on your bookshelf?
Well, you know that as a faculty, we're reading Peace as a River.
Yeah.
And that's a great read.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished a biography of Rudolf Diesel. That's kind of fascinating. I didn't know anything about the man until I read this biography, and now I forget who wrote it. And hopefully the person who wrote it is not listening to this.
Avid listener.
If he happens to be a listener, I'm really sorry. I forgot the name of the author, but it was a great biography, and that was
Diesel as in the fuel.
It's in the fuel.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's in the fuel. So I didn't know anything about him, and it's kind of fascinating life and fascinating, end of his life, and in a good way. Very interesting.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, had to ask as our reader in chief here on campus.
Sure thing.
Always got books going. Well, beautiful. I have enjoyed this conversation very much. I liked it, and I loved it. So
That's right.
No doubt it'll help me like and love the young people in my care even more. So thank you very much for all of this.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rich.
I'm hoping this is helpful to those of you trying to like and love the youngins in your care. Thank you so much, very much, for listening to support the work of our headmaster and his faculty who are giving their all to form these young men fully alive, both here on our campus and beyond the walls of the Heights, all over the United States and the world, through this podcast and other means of outreach. Please do consider supporting the Heights financially. To do that, visit heightsforum.org. Click on Give. Everything is incredibly appreciated. While you're also there, you can learn more about the upcoming Convivium Conference. This is a conference for teaching men in November of 2025. Should be absolutely awesome. We have Dr. Arthur Brooks will be speaking, and others as well. So to learn more or to register, visit heightsforum.org. Thank you once again for listening. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Lift high the cross